Delightful moment to be with our medical fraternity, and at NITI Aayog, as a member of the National Technical Board, we are more into strategy and roadmap, where we discussed about Poshan Abhiyan and Ayushman Bharat, these flagship programs of Government of India. Well, as you know that there has been an epidemiological shift in our disease pattern, the entire paradigm, from communicable to non-communicable diseases. So it's a very opportune time that you've kept the subject of low salt, which is one of those three major sinners, the salt, the sugar, and the maida, the white flour. So that becomes important. We need to see how we can biohack our bodies. And one strategy I propose is when you graduate from food science to metabolic health, this entire journey, now the action is at the cellular level. That is one thing. So we've got to go upstream. Hypertension is a symptom, but causation lies up. And that is why salt becomes an important thing to. So I'll just run you through some of these slides. WHO recommendation of 2000 milligram of sodium, which is equal to 5 grams of table salt. But the mean intake, as was pointed out by Dr. Daksha also, is 4310 milligram. So, we made the dietary guidelines for Indians 2024. I have been one of the authors for this, and this was released by ICMR just this year. And these guidelines are a very clear projection as to what your dietary intake of macro, micronutrients and other things need to be. So in a 2000 kilocalorie diet, if the food item contains more than 625 milligrams of sodium, then it is categorized as high fat, high salt, high sugar, HFSS. Now, for the first time, we have been able to basically give a definition for HFSS. Until now, we didn't have a definition. So that way, we were able to, get the industry on board also. And irrespective of the variety of salt, whether it is pink salt or black salt, the consumption should be limited. And the sodium content is almost similar, just that the pink salt and black salt, they are not iodized. You must remember that the salt we are getting is fortified with iodine as well. So we know that the sodium-potassium balance, it is important, and therefore with the reduction of sodium, you have to increase the potassium intake. And also for sodium, which is 2300 milligram per day, the potassium requirement would be 3800 milligrams per day. And therefore it is important because potassium, as you all know, helps in repolarization of the cell membrane. And this is what we have classified, considering a diet of 2000 kilocalories, where we have been able to say that if it has added fat more than 4.2 grams and added sugar more than 3 grams and salt less than or equal to 0.625 gram, then it is healthy. But if the salt content increases, then it will be classified, as you can see in the group B and C, where you are using highly polished dals, polished millets, corn, oats, yogurt, butter, papad, savories, pickles, which have more salt than the advisable recommended allowances. So what would be those strategies? Eat mostly fresh and minimally processed foods, cook with a little or no added sodium or salt. And believe me, if you are, one of the ways is to, and this is what I try at home, add a little bit of salt at the end of your, in your last piece of meal, and that should be good enough to give you the satisfaction and prevent the leptin resistance which Dr. Bharat Shah just mentioned about. And we need to now focus on herbs and spices, which will give us some additional as a additive, will give us that taste and flavor apart from the antioxidant and nutraceutical properties that they possess. Dr. Daksha just mentioned about the Eat Right India campaign under the FSSAI. This was launched, and I've been part of this campaign with Dr. Pawan Agarwal. We did this campaign, and it is gaining momentum, and good that we are bringing focus. So the people often ask me, well, if you reduce salt, then the iodine would also be reduced in the salt, in your food intake. How do we balance that? Well, it is not that we have to increase the iodine content. It is like 30 ppm of iodine in salt. But we would not want to increase the iodine content. But in those areas which are endemic, goiter endemic areas, we need to promote dietary intake of iodine. So these foods which I have, the marine foods and the broccoli and other things which have been mentioned here, they can be included in our diet. And because iodine is a fortificant of the salt, and we would not want to increase the average dietary intake of iodine, except in those areas where it is endemic prone. Now, I'll introduce you to something very, they say it's a controversial thing. I was in Japan last month. I happened to see that one of their, all their cuisines, mostly they contain one substance which is MSG, monosodium glutamate. And this they use as a seasoning. Now, as you know, Japanese are one of the, best known for their longevity, the lifespan and health span, both are good. So out of curiosity, I asked, and it was Dr. Kikuni Ikada, who way back in 1904, he found from seaweeds the MSG. And this was then some companies started producing MSG by fermentation of plant-based foods. Even today from molasses, MSG is derived. And in India, there is, the FSSAI has cleared for the safety of MSG, Food Safety Organization. And they say that the average dietary intake defined for the use of MSG, there is no average dietary intake, but anything between 0 to 120 milligram of MSG is safe. And MSG contains 1/3 of the amount of sodium, 1/3. So like table salt would have 40% of sodium, but MSG would have 12% of sodium. So then there were safety standards assessed in US FDA, and US FDA, they have categorized MSG as generally recognized as safe, GRAS category, and there is no specified upper limit of MSG. Now, the European Food Safety Authority, EFSA, has also, based on 230 research papers, declared it as safe, and there is no acceptable dietary intake limit set, as there are no health risks to normal consumption of MSG. Now, There are various studies which have been published in peer-reviewed international journals. So I was in Singapore and they showed that Singapore is adopting MSG to reduce sodium levels in food while maintaining flavor. They call it the umami flavor. And the Health Promotion Board promotes MSG as safe, effective and alternative to salt. And MSG helps in food industry meet national goals of lowering sodium intake. Now, with this, I would want to invite your views. I mean, saying that we need to reduce the consumption of salt is easy, but most of our Indian diets, we know they have a high salt, Salt is also a preservative. It is used as a preservative. And it is an essential element that our body needs, of course. So we have to design certain strategies which will not compromise with the taste of food, because you know, healthy is one thing, but what you need to have is the taste. Is it possible that we kind of conduct any studies in Indian population for safety of MSG? And if it is proven to be 40% less sodium, then we can certainly look at, with chefs and nutritionists and dietitians, whether it can be. Now these are my personal views. This is what I just happened to visit and find out as to how they are, how their food is tasty and as well as healthy. So these are some food for thought for you as well. And I'll be happy to take up any questions, and I would be giving the dietary guidelines for Indians 2024 to Dr. Umesh, and he can pass it on to whoever. I think these are very contemporarily important and useful guidelines for all. Thank you.